So we're halfway through the month of May, which is not the ideal time to be talking about April movies, but hey, better late than never. Let's talk about it. Hey, my name is Sean Chandler, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the April new releases that you saw in the month of April. Let's have a nice lively discussion. I didn't see every movie that came out, but I'm going to talk about the 7 that I did. Some of you have been asking why I'm so far behind on this video. The answer is real simple. Endgame. Essentially, Endgame is the biggest tentpole event for me when it comes to my channel, and so I just had a bunch of kind of growth content that I know a lot of people will kind of discover my channel because of those MCU Marvel rankings that I was going to do. I was doing my biggest ranking ever with the all 58 Marvel movies ranked, and so those just kind of kept pushing this one back, and that's essentially what happened. Also, I spoke at a Comic-Con a week ago in Dallas, Fan Expo Dallas. There's a little clip of it you can see up here at this link up above. That was a pretty cool little experience. Another thing that just kind of made the last 2 weeks very busy. Therefore, this video is pretty late, but without further delay, let's get started. Coming in last place is Hellboy. Oh boy, this was a movie that a lot of people hated. It debuted with like an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of my fellow movie critic friends have said it's the worst movie that they've seen thus far in 2019. And I can understand where they're coming from on a lot of that. The story here is just a jumbled mess. There's a lot of plot lines that are set up that go absolutely nowhere. The plot that we do kind of explore is pretty stupid and a bit over the top. It takes a lot of inspiration for Transformers: The Last Knight. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. There's just a lot of dumb ideas in here, poorly executed. I wouldn't come close to saying that this is one of the worst movies of the year thus far. I think I did a ranking a month ago where I did my picks for the worst movies, best and worst movies of 2019 thus far, and it didn't make that list for the simple fact that it's not boring to me. It's loaded with violent, gross schlock value. If you like to watch monsters get torn to pieces and gross stuff, there's a lot of that in here that can keep you entertained. I enjoy that kind of stuff in movies, not in real life, but in the movies I enjoy that kind of thing. So while this is a disaster when it comes to story, it's not a boring movie for me. So it's not the worst of the year, but it was definitely the worst of April that I've seen thus far. Coming in at number 6 is The Curse of La Llorona, the secret Conjuring movie. For some reason, they didn't market this film as a Conjuring film. They marketed it as from the producers of The Conjuring, but the movie is set inside of the Conjuring universe. There's a character that's even in the trailers that's in the other movies inside of the Conjuring, and there's all sorts of little teases and nuggets that make it very clear this is a movie set in the Conjuring universe, and not in a plot twist reveal kind of way. It's not like you get to the end of the movie and you're like, oh, it's in the Conjuring universe. No, they just decided not to market it that way. That's why I'm talking about it here, and I'm very okay saying that because it's not a twist. It's not anything. It's in the trailer that this character is in the movie. So I just don't know what they were thinking. As for the movie itself, it's a pretty standard haunted house, haunted family kind of story that relies way too heavily on jump scares. The whole thing is basically people walking around their house as the movie quietly builds tension and then that's all the scares in the movie. That's what the whole movie does. So it's a little bit dull for the first like 60%, and then the Raymond Cruz character joins the storyline and everything gets a lot better. It probably bumped it up like a whole letter grade for me because it's just pretty dull up to that point in time, and his character adds kind of this very dry, deadpan sense of humor, and all of it landed for me in my theater. They were cracking up as soon as he showed up inside the film. Of course, my theater was, I don't know, maybe they're all drunk or something because they were laughing at everything. Every time like creepy music started playing, someone would be like, like they didn't know how to respond appropriately to scares. So in general, this is even though it's number 6 on this list, it's not like a disaster of a movie. If you're in the mood for this kind of film, if you got this one from Redbox, you'd probably be happy with it, but it's just not great cinema. It's not particularly memorable until Raymond Cruz shows up and spices things up. Bringing us into the top 5 is Pinguin Highway. I decided to do something a little bit different, go outside of my normal realm of checking things out, and I checked out this movie, which is an anime. I took my buddy Andy along with me because I'm not as familiar with the genre, so I thought that could kind of help me out a little bit. And it's I don't even know how to describe this movie. It's a coming-of-age story about an elementary school-age boy who's discovering that he likes girls and using his knack for science to explore some strange occurrences happening in his city, which is to say, penguins are just appearing in his city. And as the story goes along, it starts for the first 40 minutes is a little bit weird because penguins are showing up, but normal besides that. And then as it goes along, it gets weirder and crazier, as is kind of typical of anime. And it's not my genre, so it's a little bit different, a little bit of a tricky one for me to review because I feel like I'm stepping into someone else's world. But it definitely has some like very funny elements to it. There's this kind of a dry sense of humor in the way that it has this boy interacting with girls and the world around him, and he's discovering boobs and stuff like that, which is a little bit awkward and a little bit funny at the same time. And but the movie overall felt, I don't know, like 20% too long. And that's not to say that they needed to cut out a subplot. It was legitimate. Like every scene seems to linger just a little bit too long. Every conversation, you're like, okay, we're done. And then it kept going. So if you kind of took everything and trimmed each scene by 10, 15, 20%, it would have tightened it up, and I think I probably would have enjoyed it a good bit more. But overall, a neat little experience, seeing something outside of my normal thing, watching it, and experiencing different type of storytelling. At number 4 is Pet Sematary. As a point of reference, I didn't watch the original Pet Sematary until 1 week before I saw this version of Pet Sematary, so I didn't know the story going into this version, but I didn't have years of nostalgia, good or bad or anything like that going into this version. This was a much slicker version of the source material, certainly more professional, better looking special effects, where the original had certain things that definitely dated it, was 30 years old, things like that. This one improved upon all of that. The acting overall, much more professional. You got some world-class actors in here with John Lithgow and Jason Clarke. But that's almost the problem with this version of the film, is that it's a little bit too slick, and some of the weirdness of the original was kind of its appeal, even watching it 30 years after it came out, still the weirdness was the charm of it. And even like the actor that played Jeb in the original, he's not as good as John Lithgow, but there was just something about it that popped a little bit more and stuck with you. So this one, it worked well enough. I didn't mind the changes at all. I thought that added some new dynamics into the film by taking it in a different direction. There's certainly a creepy ambience. The general idea of the story is unsettling, where it goes. And this one ends somewhere where it's just horrifying where this film decides to end. But because it's almost so slick, it feels a little bit generic because of that at the same time. In third place is Penguins. If you're unfamiliar, this is a film from Disney Nature where basically they send out a bunch of people to document a different climate, group of creatures, a different piece of nature on a different continent, and then they whittle that down into a narrative afterwards. This one was narrated by Ed Helms and basically tells the story of two penguins, not actually two penguins, and the life cycle or year cycle for penguins, and kind of starting with them going on this long march to a place where they're going to start breeding, making some little baby penguins, and then they lay some eggs, they hatch, and you just kind of go through the whole life cycle with them. The thing that makes this thing work is that penguins are just such awkward and goofy creatures that they're kind of adorable to watch. And so there's a lot of fun with their little hijinks, and they found a way to tell a story where the conflicts that are created throughout the year of their life cycle are the actual dangers for penguins. And so you kind of have them going from scene to scene, and then we learn something about a new thing that they face, and that's the conflict of the different scenes. So it's educational while being cute and adorable. It's only about an hour and 15 minutes long. It still felt maybe 10 minutes too long. A few too many long angle shots of penguins walking across Antarctica and things like that. And there's a few awkward things in it where it uses pop songs like 2 times in the movie. So it kicks off and there's a pop song. You're like, oh, I guess this is what we're going to do. And then it doesn't do that again for like 40 minutes. And so when it pops back in with like this romantic 80s power ballad, you're like, whoa, what just happened? And then there's like one montage montage 45 minutes into it. You thought, like, you probably should have either not done that or done a little bit more than that. Still a cute little thing that, I took my mom to it. I didn't take my kids, and maybe I should have taken my kids. Then again, there's a sequence in this where actual penguins are getting eaten alive. So probably a good thing that I took my mom and not my kids to go see this one. But if you're into nature and like penguins, this is a nice little hour and 15-minute way to see how they live. Our runner-up is Shazam. It actually feels like forever ago that I watched this movie because I saw it at a pre-screening that was way back in the month of March, so it's been like 2 months since I watched it. But a real nice addition to the DCEU and the comic book genre in general. By doing this story about a kid in the foster care system who becomes a superhero, it just opens it up to all kinds of new, interesting possibilities, both on the personal side about the Billy Batson story and finding family, as well as by having a kid become a grown man. You do big as a superhero story, and that's inherently a really funny thing to do, and there's so many possibilities inside of that. Zachary Levi seems perfect for this kind of role, but then the kid actors inside of it are really good too, and a lot of fun to watch. And some of the best stuff inside the movie is the foster family, their interactions, and the payoff that has in the third act of the film. So overall, a bunch of things about it that I really enjoyed. I thought were a ton of fun, laugh out loud, kind of pulls at your heartstrings. It has some stuff to stay and has some real emotions inside of it, where Billy's arc is more captivating than Shazam's arc in the film. Gets knocked back just a little bit because it gets way too dark a handful of times. There's so much of it that's appropriate for elementary school age kids, and they'd be a ton of fun watching Billy explore life as a superhero, and then demons start eating people's heads. Bit of a shift. Like, whoa, what just happens? Like, these two things don't really go side by side. So I wish they could have balanced that out just a little bit more. But besides that, a really neat little film. But coming in first place, you know what it's going to be. Little, of course, a delightful little comedy about a grown woman who wakes up as a little girl. Just kidding. The real answer, of course, is Avengers Endgame. This was my most anticipated movie of the year, so there was potential for this movie to disappoint greatly, because if your level of anticipation is up here and the movie ends up here, you're disappointed inherently. Luckily, the Russos delivered. They pulled off a fantastic closing out of the Infinity Saga, and gave a nice farewell to some characters. Don't want to expand too much beyond that, just in case someone hasn't watched this movie, which I believe there's 8 people left on planet Earth that haven't seen Endgame yet. In case those 8 people are watching, I won't go into too many details here, but it's a movie that truly lives up to the word epic on so many levels, leading up to a third act that it's hard to imagine how any movie could ever have better fan service. I saw it opening night with a packed crowd. Actually, I had a couple people in the theater that recognized me, so that was pretty cool. And my theater went bananas, I think 4 or 5 times inside of the finale. And I just don't know how any movie could better set up moments for audiences to go, yeah, and go bonkers crazy when these moments happen, because it is the payoff of so much stuff, and they built the stakes to be so high so that these moments could satisfy on geeky levels, on story levels. I mean, my wife was sitting there next to me crying for like 20 minutes straight. Tears of joy, tears of nerdiness, tears of sadness, all of the emotions that you could want in a movie. This third act delivers on all of them. I can't imagine any blockbuster topping this one for me. So I don't know that this will be my number 1 movie of the year, though it's very possible. But if something were to top it, I would bet it would be more of a drama. I don't think any blockbuster can elicit the blockbuster type emotions that this one did for me. So easily, without question, no hesitation, my number 1 movie of April is, of course, Avengers Endgame. If you're interested in that talk that I gave at Fan Expo, it's right over there. You can also subscribe to that other channel, Real Creators, right there at that button over there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.